Harden your soul against decadence, but do not despise it, for the soft appearance of the decadent may be deceptive. One need only consider the harlequin dances of the Eldar to see the truth of this proposition. The Eldari species grieves for its losses wrought from the malice of She Who Firsts. Civilizations, families, and even members of the Eldari pantheon lost to the insatiable hunger of the Prince of Pleasure. Though the species would fracture into myriad ways of life to confront extinction, only one is sanctioned by the sole survivor of the gods of the Star Children. For today, we shall elucidate the servants of the Laughing God, a mysterious creed who laugh in the face of death, with rumors speculating that even their patron, Kegarak, inhabits mortal forms to join them in their peculiar performances. The jesters of the First Fool, the Harlequins. As the Eldari species fell to ruin, bringing forth the death scream of She Who Firsts, Slaanesh, the coalescence of the Star Children's hubris, given form, cast down the Eldar gods of ancient past. Arrogance, hedonism, and capricious pursuit of fell sensations, giving rise to this monstrous blight upon the stars. As the Prince of Pleasure tore a rend through the skein of the material realm, the vast majority of the Eldar species' souls fell into the ravenous maw of the great enemy. The Eldari Empire had fallen, the Pantheon descending into mayhem as Kala Mencha Kane the Bloody-Handed became incensed with fury. Vol the Blacksmith, compassionate Isha, and Asurion the Creator, powerless to stave off the wrath of this despicable foe. Yet one alone, among the gods of the Eldar Pantheon, looked upon the nascent foe, seeing only annihilation within the skeins of fate, and commensurate with his trickster nature, turned tail and fled into the depths of the webway. Kegarak the Laughing God cackled at the foolish pride of his kindred, escaping the clutches of the Dark Prince. To this day, evading the siren call to join his deific kinsman, as what remains of the Eldari species fled from the Eye of Terror. Some, such as the Exodites, would set aside their vices, tilling the soil of lush maiden worlds as the humble graft of their labors starved She Who Firsts of morsels for its endless appetite. Others, such as the so-called Dark Kin, stubbornly refused to abandon the delights of sensation, establishing a home within the port city of Gomorrah, nestled within the bosom of the webway, and chose to feed the hunger of the Dark Prince by offering the pain of others whilst atrophying their psychic abilities. The Craftworld Asuriani, fortunate to have heeded the call to flee before disaster struck, took to paths of spiritual purity and virtue, their interstellar arcs saving them from the predations of the Immaterium, yet vulnerable to rising empires of lesser species. Yet within the safety of the vast webway, another faction was born, the scions of the Trickster God, who now remained as the last true deity of the Eldari Pantheon. The only being capable of saving souls from the predations of She Who Firsts, those who would serve the Great Fool as his army of disciples were offered a chance to be snatched from the maw of the great enemy should they perish in his name. So it was that the Harlequins of the First Fool burgeoned, enigmatic custodians of the webway's domains, who began to master its winding corridors of hidden pathways to all reaches of the known galaxy. Creating a creed of artful warcraft, applying the acrobatics of dance, mercurial trickery, and guile aplenty, the scions of Kegarak mastered the arts of graceful slaughter, charged as they were to stave off the encroaching presence of chaos. Too few to bring their might to the heart of the ruinous powers, nor capable of amassing an army to face it on equal terms, the Harlequins busied themselves orchestrating nascent empires to do their master's bidding. Nomadic avatars of aloof wisdom, these peculiar souls would work from the shadows, attempting to bring salvation to the broken Eldari species, forming frail alliances between Drukhari, Exodites, Asuriani, and even alien species in an attempt to build the foundations of renewal. Imbued with an agility beyond the potential of even the swiftest combatants, the champions of the last living god are not shy to display their favor as their hurricane of blades and prismatic motion elicits near folklore tales of their deeds. Dressed in flamboyant attire, more in keeping with a carnival than the theaters of war, as the saying, "the whole world is a stage," for the Harlequins, the entire galaxy is an amphitheater. Tasked as the guardians of the priceless Craftworld repository of the Eldar's most prized knowledge, the Black Library, Should even a single parchment of lore fall into the wrong hands of enemies such as the pawns of the ruinous powers, great upsets to the balance of galactic power would threaten to further endanger the Eldar species. Secured within the embrace of the Webway, the Black Library is regardless beset by only the most cunning and ambitious foes. The Court of Madness, established to misdirect such aggressors, navigated only a handful of times over the last 10 millennia. Among the armies of Kegarak, varying disciples exist within their ranks. That is, if words such as discipline belong among such a band of peculiar clowns, each specializing in divergent methods of war. Establishing no formal leaders to lead their mask, these collectives of like-minded merrymen rely on their instinctive bonds fostered through battle and performance. Their near-prescient efficiency honed by their devotion to play a specific part in their combined play. A perfectly coordinated entity comprised of dancers, mimes, and acrobats rally around a caricature of battle of legend known as a Seiduf. These reenactments applied to battles of similar circumstance are relied upon to the exclusion of all other rituals. Taking up specific identities to honor the dramatization of former glories, each part is of equal importance as the Harlequins rely upon time-honored wisdom and traditions. 3 cadres of troops, each in turn led by a troop master, forming the fulcrum to which a mask functions. Each troop master shall be supported by a Death Jester, Shadow Seeker, 2 squadrons of Skyweaver jet bikes, and a single squadron of Voidweavers. The mask of the Dance Without End strike alike to an avalanche of violence, appearing seemingly out of thin air as they overwhelm enemy positions. Passionate disciples of the deeds of Kegarak's greatest exploits, these experts of the plays of the Spiral of Mirth and Madness hope to grow closer to their deity by espousing his chronicles at length, even during battle. The tunnels of the Webway said to shift at the mere presence of this favored mask. The Dance Without End wear the rune of the Myriad Path upon their costumes, symbolizing their knowledge of the hidden pathways of the Webway. The Mask of the Dreaming Shadow seek out Necron threats as the self-appointed vanguard against the Eternal Empire. Their members held in high esteem, despite their morose demeanor. Disdainful of other masks, despite the praise heaped upon them by their peers, these resentful souls deliberately exaggerate their antipathy as the distraction fighting the resurgent Necron peer forestalls their engagement against the true enemy, Slaanesh. Marking their costumes with the rune of the Unveiled Mystery, the Dreaming Shadow wears such an ironic sigil symbolizing their pledge to defeat She Who Firsts, preoccupied as they are with quelling the Necrons through acts of selfless bravery. The Mask of the Frozen Stars, infamous for their irrepressible sense of humor, which many find in truth to be grating. These sentinels of the maiden worlds of the Eastern Fringe foster an uncharacteristic optimism for the Eldar species' future. Seeking to bring forth the end of days, the Rana Dandra, as their Shadowseers pass through a tangled mess of potential futures. Through surgical acts of destruction, these Harlequins face the armies of Chaos, the Imperium, and Tau Empire. Seeing all races other than the Eldari as vermin, never are these tricksters too distracted to perform deadly pranks on which they consider the lesser species. Indiscriminate in their assaults of their enemies, should a guffaw be had at particular acts of spectacular slaughter. Bearing the rune of the Divergent Chance, depicting the untold threads to which fate shall unfold. Whether plunging hive cities into darkness, stripping the Gellerfields of disembarking ships, or depopulating entire worlds, orchestrating wars between rival species, these tricksters of Kegarak delight in the mayhem they sow. The Mask of the Midnight Sorrow, sworn to oppose the forces of chaos in the name of the Laughing God. Their title drawn from the 18th verse of the 3rd act of The Fall, bears homage to the scene wherein Kegarak witnesses the moment of clarity befalling his children. Always striking during the witching hour of those they seek to protect. As the bell tolls for annihilation, these bleak heralds of the Great Fool shall entertain any action, no matter how extreme, in order to achieve victory. Making alliances with the forces of the Imperium, only to betray them days later, these capricious clowns fight to enact Kegarak's great plan, caring not who might be sacrificed to bring forth its machinations. Continually pitted against the forces of She Who Firsts, as the Rana Dandra draws closer, the Farseers of each craftworld cite their ill deeds as omens of the end of days to come. Bearing the rune of an inverted heart of twilight, scholars believe that the mask strikes now as the Eldar species endures its twilight days. Their commitment to stave off the reign of darkness, allying them to those who have common cause to purge the blight of chaos. The Mask of the Reaper's mirth, obsessed with conducting murders laced with irony, these exemplars of the Laughing God's dark humor embark upon battle, seeking to produce a masterpiece of destruction. Painting the battlefield alike to a canvas with the blood of their enemies, these fell artists have created spectacles such as the Palace of Crystal Bones, Fountain of Crimson Tears, and Hall of Echoed Screams as monuments to their cruelty. Marked by the rune of first blooding, these grim avatars of the Great Fool seek to claim the last breath of their foes, deriving great pleasure from their dispassionate massacres. The Mask of the Shattered Mirage, emblematic of the Laughing God's proclivity to remain joyful in the face of ruination. Even those among the other masks of Harlequins fear these volatile jesters. Their performances terrible to behold, as tales of fatalistic despair diminish the resolve of their audiences. These ghosts of the webway fight with reckless abandon, seemingly with no care for their own well-being. Symbols of the rune of the lamented dead, a fitting sigil for the Shattered Mirage, the promise of the demise of all things, spurs this mask on to face their foes with a smile on their lips and righteous martyrdom swelling in their hearts. The Mask of the Silent Shroud, uttering not a single word, both within and without battle. These softly treading mimes muffle their own weapons to prevent their illusion of stillness from being interrupted. Utterly disorientating to be beset by a horde of eerie wraiths, whose blades do not clamor, nor guns bark fury. This secretive mask excel at stealth operations, often having tallied several kills before any know of their presence. Bearing the rune of the Thorn-Strangled Stave upon their costumes, this symbol of the weapon of the Eldar hunting god, Kurnus, is a testament to the Silent Shroud's ability to hunt their prey. The Mask of the Soaring Spite, often seen accompanying the craftworld of Samhan. These scions of the Cosmic Serpent exclusively perform aerial assaults on the battlefield in imitation to their shared icon of Eldar mythology. Their simple rune of the diamond, signifying their sense of spiritual oneness with the mythic weaver serpents of their ancient mythology. Their performances made within the Toroid arenas of Comora's witch cults delight their observers with feats of wild acrobatics. The Mask of the Veiled Path, exploiting other species to achieve their own objectives. These manipulators orchestrate false alliances, only to pit their compatriots against enemies to fell alone. Events orchestrated by their infamous Shadowseer, Salandri Veilwalker, known to have changed the skein of fate far and wide across the galaxy, whether aiding the plight of the Prince of Iyanden, Uriel, invading the mind of Chief Librarian Mephiston of the Blood Angels chapter, or freeing the mysterious Cypher from confinement by the Avenging Sun, Rabute Gilliman. Only she truly knows her intent. Adorning their costumes with the rune of the Inverse Enigma, this sign of riddles within riddles, backstabbing, and trickery is a fitting mark for the Veiled Path, as they pursue ambitions known only to themselves. The Mask of the Winter Sun, tasked with guarding the webway from threats. Though among the smallest of Harlequin groups, they bear an enduring animosity towards the Drukhari. Their signature dance, the Broken Chalice, a tale of treachery caused by Dark Cousins. Such a tale is likely the cause of their estrangement, as should the Dark Eldar approach their domains, they shall risk life and limb. Aiding the plight of craftworlds Alatok and Mimera during the Battle of the Maiden's Veil upon the Imperial world of Batalis Free, their assault of the Imperial defenders would be denied only by virtue of the Space Wolves' great company, the Bloodmaws, led by their Wolf Lord, Bran Redmaw. Adopting the rune of the Unseen Mysteries, this combination of the Eldari rune of enigmas and a blinded vandalization of the Seer signifies their intent to abstain themselves from ignorance. The Mask of the Twisted Path, regarded as sinister by their fellow Harlequins. Their performances conclude with these sirens luring victims, both Eldar and alien alike, into the embrace of the webway, wherein all trace of them shall be lost. Fighting beside unlikely allies, often much to the chagrin of their peers. Such efforts are made only to entice new tributes for the Great Fool, withdrawing from the field of battle when their tithes have been secured. Their rune of Stolen Grace, symbolizing the souls taken by the whims of Kegarak. None know the reason for the Laughing God's pilfering of souls, and many believe such actions are best left uninvestigated. Last of the known masks is that of the Weeping Dawn, a band of assassins who target their foes with meticulous planning and precision. Guided by their Shadowseers as they seek out the greatest threats to the Eldari species, whether Space Marine commanders, members of the Tau Ethereal caste, tyrants of the Ruinous Powers, or warlords of the Orc species, the blades of the Weeping Dawn strike deep and true. Their rune of the Pierced Heart, both a symbol of enacting the killing blow but also piercing through lies to ascertain the truth. Those who ally with the ruinous powers or trammel the soil of verdant maiden worlds unwittingly are added to their list of targets. To witness the martial prowess of the Harlequins is a true spectacle for the senses. These gaudy acrobats exemplifying grace, skill and precision in both exaggerated and subtle ways. Whether pirouetting on a Wraithbone stage or the muddy blood-soaked soil of battle, every leap, bound, gesture and glance of these jesters is a masterclass in elegant slaughter. None among their ranks born as a Harlequin. All who pledge to serve the Laughing God eschew their former path, friends and purpose, as their troop acts as their surrogate family. Varying from light, dark and twilight troops, whether led by a Sun Prince, Webway Witch, or myriad other eccentric commanders, each of their kinsmen shall mimic their temperament as an extension of their personalities. Harlequins of Light, identified by a prism marking, typically performing grand displays, playing the role of heroes of long-forgotten tales. These brave warriors are bold in the extreme, as they plunge into the heart of their enemies, delighting in their valiant charges. Dark troops, noted by four-sided stars, exhibit a far more morose and sinister aspect to their appearance. Their flamboyant cruelty, edged with what some might consider unnecessary violence, a stark contrast to those of the light. Lastly, the Twilight troops bearing heart icons are by far the most peculiar assortments. Their unknowable motives baffling opponents and allies alike, until their masterstroke reveals the genius of their strategy. Issuing their spirit stones, protected as they are by the efforts of the Laughing God, their exhilaration felt in battle is matched only by the thrill felt by their souls as Kegarak snatches them from the clutches of Slaanesh, before once more retreating into the webway. Their equivalent of squad markings, defying what other armies might consider the norm. Such strange sigils marked upon their knee, thigh, or shoulder plates are intentionally hard to decipher to aid their confounding nature when deployed for war. Their troop masters, bearing an ornate master rune to mark their pedigree. These avatars are known by the Eldari tongue as Ethea, acting as the officer caste of the Harlequins. Perfecting their troops' theatrics as they weave elaborate battle plans devised to inflict trauma swiftly. It is the burden of a troop master not only to serve as the focal point of their displays, but also answer for each flaw in their deadly dances. Elevated by their brothers and sisters as the most brilliant fighter among their ranks. Unlike typical commanders who lead from behind waves of cannon fodder, the troop masters are the first to launch headfirst into the thick of battle. Troop masters of Light, aggressive in their forward advances, aping the most cherished tales of noble heroes of yore. Troop masters of the Dark, by contrast, seek out gratuitous killing strikes to end their enemies, whilst troop masters of Twilight seek to confound their enemies with cyclical acts of wild maneuvers. Acting as the will of the Laughing God made manifest, the troop masters typically wear long coats as a sign of their rank. Their close combat attacks, unleashed with shuriken pistols, vortex grenades, the infamous Harlequin's Kiss, and on rare occasions, psychic abilities. Leaving their calling cards once battle has waned, their planting of lightweight batons unfurl to present the flag of their mask, a symbol of the Laughing God's wrath among the carnage of war. Troop members, the lieutenants of their master's theatrics, their expertise striking fast before their enemies retaliate, most obvious by their flimsy garb, which seems to most onlookers to be ill-suited to the ravages of battle. Evasion, the champion skill of such dexterous combatants. Their use of holosuit fragments obscures their true form in battle, unleashing storms of colored shards, disorientating mortals and demons alike. Their beautiful arts of blade work, delivering pinpoint stabs, graceful slashes, and deft parries to their foes' attacks. Whether paragons of light, villains of darkness, or renegades of twilight, all play their part to perfection or perish from a misstep of their routine. Players, known as the Reliatan, are the rank and file of the Harlequin Order. Their parts to play in the chorus of battle, crucial as they aid the more ambitious acts of pageantry of their superiors. Shadowseers, known as Esdain, acting as psychic carders of the Harlequins. Their conjurations sow misdirection, fear and confusion within enemy ranks. Their actions causing the senses of their enemies to betray them, as stoic men are driven mad, gouging their eyes with their own fingernails. The Shadowsheers' projections of vast illusory veils and warding shields protect them from harm. Acting as the embodiment of fate within the games played by the Harlequins, these narrators of destiny speak in monologues, song, and rhythmic stanza, their hallucinogenic Credan grenade launchers providing drug-laced hysteria into the deadly cocktail of conflict. Conjuring white-hot flames and swirling motes of blinding light with superlative skill, these diviners of the skeins of the future diverge from that of the Farseers of Craftworlds due to their lack of care in manipulating events, instead playing the role they are destined to play. Often acting as envoys between the Craftworlds and dark kin of Komorra, the gleaming masks of their panoplies show portents of the future to those who gaze into their depths, resulting in many believing them to be free agents amongst the scions of Kegarak. Death Jesters, or Margarak, are the grim executioners of the Harlequins, their uncharacteristic use of heavy weaponry and armored grav tanks setting them apart from their kin. Carrying Shrieker cannons into battle as they fire single, devastating acid shots into the heart of enemy positions. The virulent strain of bacteria within such projectiles causes expansion of blood vessels within its victims, which results in explosions of viscera. Such spectacular displays of gore, causing screams to which the weapon bears its name, the sinister Death Jesters of Kegarak stand aloof from their troop, reminding all who oppose the Laughing God the fate of those who underestimate the Great Fool. Performing risky stunts as they dice with death, the Death Jesters wear masks and outfits decorated with bones, adding to their already grim demeanor. Cracking morbid jokes which delight even the denizens of the Dark City, even the cruelest Comorite knows not to meddle with the affairs of Death Jesters, lest they become the subject of their malice. Committing practical jokes on their enemies during battle, which provides infinite possibilities for amusing accidents. Their habit of confining defenders within bunkers, trapped with the corrosive effects of their Shrieker cannons, amuses them greatly. The screams of the dying, music to a Death Jester's ears, these sadistic killers are known to dress unconscious soldiers in the rendered flesh of their kin, resulting in panicked awakenings which even the kin of their troop find distasteful. Supported by Skyweavers who descend from the heavens, trailing clouds of hallucinogenic vapor, the gleeful pilots known as Skyborn Princes steer their jet bikes, as their rider companion, the Great Falcon, fires concussion blasts, often casting Star Bolus anchored precariously on the hind of their steed. Detonations from such bolus, capable of tearing holes through Space Marine ceramite or severing the legs of mobile weapons platforms, many have underestimated this seemingly crude method of warfare. Those who survive casting down their payloads, wielding Zephyrglaives in their stead, these avatars of the cosmic serpent of Eldar mythology, spread far across the stars into tiny fragments, is a boon for Kegarak, who revels in its subtle divergent tales, spoken in riddles. Void Weavers are more substantial variants of the Skyweaver. These craft carrying heavy payloads, such as shuriken cannons, mounted onto their chassis, capable of sundering heavy armored vehicle convoys. Fitted with polychromatic camouflage to aid their concealment during raids, these tools of ambush bring ruin to their foes, before withdrawing from danger as swiftly as they descend. The Star Weavers, securing aerial superiority using a combination of incredible speed, shuriken, and haywire weapons. These anti-gravitic dogfighters use mirage launchers to project holofields, protecting their otherwise lightly armored frames. Capable of deploying troops into battle as they leap from their transport platforms, diving into the heart of the fray. These craft, named after the most courageous of the brood of the Cosmic Serpent, mimic their aid given to Kegarak during the flight from the Grave of Stars. Solitaires, known as the Arabenian, the most enigmatic of all Harlequins. These brilliant warriors roam the stars alone, only rarely joining troops for an occasional cooperation in battle. Their souls doomed to the devouring appetite of She Who Thirsts. The attempts of their laughing patrons' intercedents is not guaranteed, and thus solitaires keep a safe distance from their kinsmen, as their masks project the unsettling and androgynous features of Slaanesh. Harlequin troops deigning not to speak to solitaires so as not to invite curses upon their person. Such souls spread feelings of depression when around psychers, and thus are treated with hostility by those who surround them. Seemingly immune to psychic attacks as the weapons of their enemies loosen in their grips. No performance of the Fall of the Eldari, the dance, is complete without the solitaires, playing the role of She Who Thirsts. For it is said that should others attempt such a feat, only madness shall befall them. Sightings of solitaires devouring the spirit stones of slain Eldar as a means to vanguard their souls from She Who Thirsts. These lone warriors can live amongst all manner of races, often encompassing the form of Kegarak himself, due to their nature as the pinnacle of the Laughing God's ideals. To observe the weapons of the Harlequin Order is to witness the most esoteric and strange assortment of armaments imaginable. their peculiar designs often hiding devastating inner workings behind a visage of a smirking grin. Each mask worn by a harlequin known as a agafe or false face. Within their construction resides a small holographic device which is capable of projecting different death masks, the faces of demons, and even scenes of death onto their faces. Emitting a short-range psychic amplifier which bolsters their enemy's sense of foreboding and despair. Variants of the masks, such as the Rictus, amplify feelings of nihilism, while dread masks and masks of fear feast on the worries of those who look upon them. Crafted to imitate the likeness of the hero or villain to which the harlequin hopes to play. While some are bisected in black and white halves to mimic the blinded princes, others use patches of diamonds on their cheeks to honor the tears of Isha. Free to choose how to adorn their masks should their efforts be made in the name of the Great Fool. The troop masters are required to wear masks bearing exaggerated and grotesque features as a way to taunt the embrace of death. Each of their hollow suits psychically attuned to its wearer. Their trademark Defedi between colors hollow suits dazzle the eyes of their foes, erupting into blizzards of diamonds and light particles. The faster one moves, the more pronounced the fractal light storm which enshrouds their form. Their flip belts containing wonders of Eldari technology, such as anti-gravity generators activated by a fort, allowing the harlequin to perform supernatural acrobatic feats. Their power swords, named after famed weapons wielded by heroes of Eldari myth, whether devoted to gods such as Cain, Isha, Kernus, or Vol. In truth, many such artifacts have been stolen by Kegarak, leading some to believe him to carry such instruments of war when roaming the plains of the material. The Harlequin's Kiss, Kiss of Doom, Sting, or Brafu Angua, the most infamous of all the Great Fool's arsenal. This spool of high-tensile razor-sharp monofilament wire, constrained within a wrist-fired sheath, unspools instantaneously when fired, shredding its victims into something akin to soup before withdrawing back to its container, having moved so fast that no gore remains upon its edge. The Harlequin's Embrace, another wrist-mounted weapon, similar to those carried by warp spiders of the Aspect Shrines. These projectile clouds of wire embrace their foes rather than invade their forms, slicing enemies into rather larger chunks of meat. The Harlequin's Caress, wielded solely by solitaires, encases the user's hand in phase field technology, allowing the user to punch holes through enemy armor and pluck their still beating heart from their chest, as easily as if grasping through air. Fusion pistol projectiles, causing the molecules of their targets to vibrate at rapid paces. The intense heat created from such manipulations cause their host to burst into flames, before liquefying into puddles of gore and evaporating into thin air. Neurodisruptors, made of psychocrystalline materials, fire beams of energy capable of overwhelming their target's nervous systems. The protection of the finest armor bypassed, as such beams kill their enemies, leaving no trace of direct trauma. Mist staves, wielded by the Shadowseer Order, channeling their psychic abilities into energies capable of crushing the sturdiest of armor. Those unprotected, struck by glancing blows, are overwhelmed by reduced eyesight, verging on hysterical blindness. Haywire cannons, mounted on vehicles, fire electromagnetic blasts of energy, which split into forked veins. Even the most sophisticated machinery of myriad alien races scrambled from a single barrage. Mirage launchers, obscure Harlequin lines with explosions of vibrant blinding colors dispensed from hollow grenade pods. Many a scion of Kegarak has been saved by the covering of fire of such assaults on the senses. For to face the laughing god is to invite mayhem into one's life, and when all is said and done, who is the more foolish? The man who believes himself wise enough to cheat fate, or the clown who laughs in the face of death? They come masked and clad in motley, performers and acrobats and fools. Yet the true fools are they who judge the Harlequins at face value, who underestimate their murderous malice and utter, ruthless dedication to their cause. Show me one who mocks the Harlequins as clowns, and I shall show you a corpse in the making. This has been a tale of the Eldari Empire, read by the Antiquarian. To wear a mask is to obscure one's true self, an act of misdirection used to preserve the sanctity of one's own identity and intent. Each of us wears masks, even if not literally, for to play one's cards in clear sight of all who care to look, inevitably invites the attentions of those who would play your hand to their benefit alone. Be wary of the cards you reveal to those around you, for trust given freely is naive, and trust never shared is paranoia. For only those who have proven loyal to your cause, displaying solidarity to your endeavor, have your best interests in mind. Yet even they can prove wolves in sheep's clothing, awaiting the opportune moment to seize their prize. So study your peers, allow opportunities to share growth, and above all, seek camaraderie with like-minded souls. For only with companions proven of their righteous purpose can you perceive through the forged smiles of those wearing masks of ill intent.